Okay, so I want to explore some of the options that Cinema 4D has using dynamics or simulations to do some of the animation work that might be a little more tedious, like a bouncing ball, or something that's like hitting a surface, or maybe something that's rolling down. Some of those things can be automated using simulation. So let me show you an example. I'll start with something really simple. I'm going to start with a plane for something to bounce on, and maybe I'll use a sphere. And I'm going to pull this up here, maybe scale it down a tiny bit. Okay, so what I want is to animate this falling and hitting this surface. So I can use some tags here. I'm going to right click and go to simulation tags. And what I'll do is there's a rigid body and soft body, so I can make this like a firm object, or a rigid object, or a soft object. I'll start with the rigid body, so it's like, this is like hard, like maybe like a marble or something. And then I'm going to put a simulation tag on this. Basically anything that you want this thing to hit, I'll put a collider body on. And just with those two things, what I can do is start from the beginning and just hit play, and that's weird. It just falls, and it doesn't really have, it looks kind of janky like that. So let's go into some of the options here. I think it could use a little bit more bounce. I think it's like a little bit, it just feels too heavy. So let's go into our tags, click on the tags, and you can look at all these different pieces. So collision, looks like the bounce is only at 5. So what if I put this up to 30? Friction is like, does it like hit something and kind of catch on it? So let's see what that looks like. I'm just gonna press play, and that feels a little bit better in there. Part of this is like, this doesn't look great because maybe it doesn't have enough segments on it. I'm just gonna clean it up. It's just for me to look at. I mean, I think when it rendered, it would have come out like that. Okay, so there are a few other things for us to think about. I just want to maybe show some things that I want you to be aware of. One thing is, hey, if you put something here, let's say I put this piece, this podium or something, and let's say I wanted, this to bounce on it. Well, it will not recognize it if it does not have a collider body tag on it. So just be careful of that, like being aware. Now it will hit that. Within here, these pieces also have bounce and friction that you can play with. You could maybe with the sphere, maybe you just the mass. One thing you see here is, you could adjust the density or world density. There is within this file, if I go to my, if I hit Command D, so that's Command D as in dog, I'm going to look at my project settings. And within here, you can hit dynamics, and you can see what the density and the gravity is. I guess 1000 is sort of the default. But you could do something like hit -1000, and if you were trying to do some sort of simulation in space, and maybe let me just move this cube up so it has something to bounce up against, and maybe just zoom out a little bit, so you could have this hit that. So again, Command D is going to let us adjust this, and so if you could have things fall more quickly or more slowly. So I'm going to go and just put it back to where it was. And again with the sphere, maybe for this the collision, you could, if it really is a bouncy ball, just be careful. Sometimes when you do this, it gets a little bit wonky, but we could really make it bounce like that. Like that animation, we could keyframe that, but you could also set that up to work within this program. Another thing we can do with this simulation, like for example, if we, this bouncing ball is fine if it just we wanted it to drop, but what if we wanted to like move somewhere? There are some forces that we can access if we go up to simulate and forces. You can have it be attracted to something, deflected. I'm going to use like gravity, or I'm going to use wind, right? So like maybe we can use the wind to like make it. Again, this it comes in and it has like a wind turbine. The wind is going to move in the direction of this blue arrow. So we can go in and, here you have the settings, wind speed, turbulence. But even this gives us kind of a way to directionally, play with that. So if, it falls off once it runs out of space. But, if let's say we could extend this a little bit, and we can, for the wind speed, let's make it like 20. That's actually quite a lot. Let's see how that goes. Yeah. And you can keyframe this too as you want. You can have a more turbulent speeds, but again, this allows us to have an animation that looks, like really like it's living in the real world. It's a simulation, but we haven't keyframed anything here, so it's kind of nice. And maybe this gives you some ideas on things you can do. So one last thing before I end, I did mention that there was different types of bodies in here, the sort of rigid body or soft body. And actually, when you're creating a tag, you can choose rigid or soft body, but you could also just kind of change it by turning it on soft body here. Now this gets really interesting and crazy, like some of the settings for the springs, and getting it to look exactly how you want it, but just wanted to show you could make it look more like a soft body. That is, let me actually turn off the wind. So I feel like that is too much. So you might want to play with some of these settings, maybe turn down the shear. Trying to think, maybe you want a little bit more stiffness in here, because that was just too much. Yeah, so maybe something like that is what you're going for, a little cushion. Again, this is just a really quick intro into some of the things you can do with simulations in Cinema 4D, and hopefully this gets you started, and you can see how easy it is to get started. But obviously there's a lot that you could do getting into the nitty-gritty of all these things. So I'll let you explore that on your own. I would go ahead and start doing some of the things that you already know how to do, adding materials, cameras, animating other elements too within the scene, but this can kind of take you a long way.